Louisville Live this morning. Good having you with us. Every week he is here. Karl Truman, the injury lawyer, workers' comp, Social Security, disability. You've been involved in an accident. Maybe you've slipped, had a car accident. Karl's here. Want to open up the phone lines, 502-276-2118. Now is the time to call. Don't be shy because he's here for a short time, but he'll answer your questions. How's everything going?
Morning. Great.
Okay, all this heat out there. You tired of it? It's cooled down the last couple of days, but it just wears on you.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it gets really hot, and got to be careful in that heat with heat injuries.
Yeah, and I know you've talked about boating safety, and I know just going outside you got to be careful. But we're taking your phone calls, 502-276-2118. We have a lot of questions that have come in just in the last week or so for Karl. I want to start off with one from Mount Washington. This is Carolyn in Mount Washington is emailing us, and you can email us live at WBKI.TV. WBKI.TV. And Carolyn writes, my son plays football for a high school in Bullitt County. He's on our insurance plan. Does Mr. Truman suggest we get any additional insurance for potential sports injuries? Carolyn in Mount Washington. Thanks, Carolyn.
Well, really, if you're on a health plan, if you have health insurance yourself, then it's probably not necessary to buy one of these. I think sometimes schools do have some other plans that they sell. But if you have your own health insurance, I don't think that's generally necessary. I think, there should be coverage enough right there. Well,
it's good that, Carolyn, that you're listening to us about needing insurance because, you need insurance for the cars and stuff like that. Taking emails live at WBKI.TV right now and taking your phone calls, 502-276-2118. Rochelle is calling for Karl Truman from Shively. Good morning, Rochelle. Good morning. You're on the air. Go ahead.
Okay, I had a question. I was in a car accident.
Mm-hmm. Okay, go ahead.
And I hurt my back, so I end up voluntarily quitting my job because I injured my back. And now my job is fighting me for unemployment because they said I didn't quit for a good cause. But the doctor was unable to comply with my doctor's request at work.
Right.
So I just wanted to know, what can I do?
Well, unfortunately, I think you probably jumped the gun there a little bit by going ahead and quitting on your own first. It would have been better for you to take your restrictions. Of course, if the doctor takes you off work, then that's one thing, where you can't work at all. But if the doctor says, here's your restrictions, then you should take those restrictions to your employer and say, I need some accommodations for my restrictions. And then if they say, we can't accommodate you, and we're going to have to let you go, then that would be on them. But I'm afraid, in my opinion, I think you kind of jumped the gun there to go ahead and quit in advance before taking those steps to protect yourself. So, they may prevail on that because you did quit on your own, simply saying, well, I don't think I can do it anymore.
All right, Rochelle, thank you very much. If you need some additional information, we encourage you to call the Karl Truman at his law office in case there's more information to this. I wanted to we have several emails. Becky in Louisville has an interesting one because it's been hot lately, and, when you're out there, you got to be hydrated. And Becky is writing us here on Louisville Live this morning. I went to a recent outdoor event, and they ran out of bottled water. I asked if I can leave and get some water. They said I would have to pay another admission to get back in. I was so mad, we just left. I won't attend it again. So I don't know what you can do. You can't legally do anything, but at least she was thinking smart there.
Well, that's true. And as consumers, that's all we can do is vote with our wallets. If they don't take care of us or they don't do the right thing, then not go back or not patronize them again. So, legally, do they have a duty? I mean, if someone were to have a heat problem, potentially if they didn't have facilities or enough water and they knew they could reasonably expect and they didn't allow anybody to bring in water. So those are all issues, but definitely vote with your pocketbook.
Yeah, hey, we're taking your phone calls and emails live at WBKI.TV and your calls. Call us right now, 502-276-2118. Tanya is writing us. There's a lot of outdoor activities. People like to be outside, and so I guess Tanya from Louisville had an issue. She's writing Karl Truman this morning. I went to a restaurant along the river and we ate outside. I stepped on a nail that popped up through a board. I went to a 24-hour medical center and got it taken care of. Should I bring it to the attention of the restaurant?
Well, definitely you should. And I'm not saying, and I don't know the extent of the injury, it sounds like everything healed up okay and you're fine. But they need to know anyway for a couple of reasons. First of all, they may not know that there's a problem. And so any responsible business owner or property owner would want to know about a problem so they can fix it. And then if they don't fix it and someone else gets hurt worse, that is not as fortunate, that they could potentially get hurt worse, then the restaurant can't say, well, I didn't know, it just happened, because that's always one of the defenses that we hear is, well, it just happened, we didn't have time to fix it, we didn't know about it. So it not only helps them do the right thing, but it protects people on down the road from getting the same problem.
Hey, we're taking emails and your calls. If you have a workers' comp question, a Social Security disability, maybe you've been injured like that last emailer, call us though right now. Carl's here for a few more minutes, 502-276-2118. And then going back to the situation where there's an outdoor deck, or maybe it's an apartment complex, maybe it's a pathway. If you bring it to someone's attention, or maybe you're a renter, and you bring it to someone's attention, it's best to do it in writing and document it?
Well, it is have some sort of record, even a personal journal or log or a letter, of course, is the best, because then you can, you have it documented. Because that, as I mentioned earlier, that's one of the issues we always hear. It's your routine defense when something happens on a property. Well, we didn't know about it. Nobody, it just happened. I didn't have time to fix it. Or if it's a loose board, or even in a grocery store, if someone spills something in a store, the routine defense that I always hear is, well, it just happened and I didn't have time to clean it up. Right. And so the more documentation, then yes, the better off we are in proving a case.
Taking your phone calls right now, 502-276-2118. Jasmine in Louisville is calling the legal line for Karl Truman. Good morning, Jasmine.
Good morning.
What is your question for Karl?
In February, I was in an accident, and I was a student at University of Louisville. Mm-hmm. I was in an accident, and I had back and neck injuries. So my doctor had took me, and he put me on medical leave. So,
go ahead, we can hear you.
I lost all my school money, and I wondered, if anything could be done about it.
Well, it should be included as part of, can be included in part of your claim for your injury. I assume this was, you're making a claim against somebody else that hurt you. So if you lost out your semester of school, then certainly I would include that claim for that tuition for that as part of your claim for damages. Now, the intangible damages say, well, I have to do another semester. You've got the out-of-pocket costs for tuition, books, whatever you had to pay that you lost. Then you have an intangible cost, which is a little bit harder to put a price tag on because now you've got to delay your school for another semester. So is that part of your damages? Yes, but that part's a little harder to put a price tag on for that. But certainly it all goes into your claim.
Well, that's something I didn't really think about is those, and that's the reason Karl practices in both Indiana and Kentucky. And Jasmine, we appreciate it. So she's injured, and that's something I wouldn't think about. If you're injured and you've already paid for your semester of college, maybe some books, and maybe the class isn't offered to the following fall, and you got to make adjustments. Is that part of being taken care of if it's not your fault in an accident?
Sure, it's still part of your damages. Again, as I pointed out, that you have your tangible damages, which is like you paid tuition, which you've lost that. You've paid for books and other expenses that now that's lost. So that should be included in the compensation award.
And I can think there's some other situations like that too. It's not just school, but there's got to be some other secondary effects of the situation that could pose some problems to you. And I mean, you don't think of these things when you're in an accident, and when the insurance company calls up and says, we're just going to give you a check to take care of things. Don't be so quick to take that check.
Well, yeah, and so often we hear, just like in the BP disaster, they say, well, we'll pay legitimate claims. That's kind of in the eye of the beholder, the insurance adjuster. They'll say, well, we'll pay all of your legitimate claims, but they really want to nickel and dime you on what they consider as legitimate. They might say, well, we'll take care of all your medical bills related to accident, but then, after you've been treating for months and months, then they say, well, we think all you needed was the ambulance and an ER visit, and that's all we're going to pay.
All right, Karl's with us every week here on Louisville Live this morning. Appreciate the calls and the emails. We'll have more next week. And hey, did you see Frankie Valli just walked in? Frankie Valli's here. Can you believe it? It's the Jersey boys. They're playing in town. We're going to talk to them and the Kentucky Lottery and so much more. We'll Live this morning. Be right back. Karl Truman, the injury lawyer.